I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the 21-22 FAFSA, I transferred to USF.
Mm-hmm.
But if I need verification, would SPC be able to tell me that, or is USF going to be the ones to tell me if I need verification?
Great question. But yeah, if you are going to be at USF in 21-22, then it would be USF that will be conducting the verification with you.
Okay.
If you're not sure what it is they're asking for, you can certainly come in. We can log into your USF account and we can translate from financial aid ease into English what it is they're asking for.
Yeah, I haven't done my USF application yet because I was waiting until after the semester, so these classes were done, but I wasn't sure how that would work.
No problem.
If in the case that I did have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. If you were chosen for verification and you submitted USF on your 21-22 application, a FAFSA application, then yeah, that would be the school that would be reaching out to you, and it will be on their, on your account with them, like you have your MySBC, you'll have some sort of MyUSF on their website. They'll have checklist items of what they need you to provide them. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Any other questions before I move on?
William, just to piggyback on Melanie's question, what if a student was going to finish SPC in the fall and then start USF next spring?
Excellent.
Would they add USF later, or would they put both schools on now?
No, they can definitely still put both schools on right off the bat. That's not a problem. And then if they were chosen for verification, both schools will be reaching out and asking to provide information. Unfortunately, just because you clear verification with us, USF would still need it to be redone over there as well. So that's why it's a good idea to get it added onto both schools, take care of it early, and then you won't have a problem later down the road, especially if you're going to be with us in the fall and then with the spring. It's a short window, and obviously with winter vacation time, a lot of places are closed in that window, and it makes it hard for submitting paperwork. So yeah, if you get it done early is your best bet. Just an add-on to that point, so what would end up happening is for a student in that situation that's going to be with us in the fall and then moving on to USF in the spring, when we originally offer financial aid, we would offer financial aid at SPC for both the fall and the spring. Now, once the financial aid comes in for the fall, then the student would want to come and tell us that they're not going to be with us in the spring, and then we can cancel the spring aid so that when USF tries to offer the student aid, they don't go, oh, we can't offer you spring aid because SPC is already tying it up. Is basically how that works. So I'm just going to reiterate that again. We would originally offer financial aid for fall and spring. It's just the way it's done. Once the fall money comes in, student would just want to come in to speak to us, ask us to cancel the spring disbursement, and then USF will be able to take over from there. It's a little tricky when that happens for the student, but we can try to make it as easy as possible. Any other questions? Great questions. Thank you. If not, I will move on briefly to the verification process. I'm not going to clog you guys down with verification, but basically what happens is once you submit the FAFSA, it takes about 3 days to go through the federal processor, and then it gets spat out on the other end to the schools that you listed on the FAFSA. Now, if you do a FAFSA right now, most schools are not loading those FAFSAs right away. Most schools will probably wait until sometime in the middle of November before they start to load those FAFSAs. So like with us at SBC, if you do the FAFSA right now, typically we tell students what's your to-do list, and within 3 days, we'll be notifying you if we need additional documents. But because we're not even going to be loading them until the middle of November, it wouldn't be until then that you'd start seeing if you were chosen for verification. So if you do the FAFSA tonight, which is what I'm recommending, then around about probably Thanksgiving, start checking your to-do list just to see if you were chosen for verification and if there are any additional items that we're requesting from you. Now, if you do get chosen for verification, the first thing I tell you is don't freak out. A lot of students, they think they're in trouble. They think they did something wrong. Just because you got chosen for verification doesn't mean you did anything wrong on the FAFSA. It's a completely random selection process. And it's not the school that selects you, it's the Department of Education. They literally select about a third of the population. Some students get chosen every year. Some students don't ever get chosen. Other students get chosen once every 3 years, as you should get chosen once every 3 years. But it is completely random. And again, it's not the school that's selecting you. We're not picking on you. We have no control over it. Once you submit the FAFSA, it goes through the federal processor. they flag certain ones they want us to check on. And again, they're not flagging them because you did anything wrong. They are randomly flagging them. So once it comes into us, it has a flag on it for us to check. We then put those checklist items out there for you, and then you just provide us whatever documentation it is we're requesting from you. And as I mentioned before, if you use that IRS retrieval tool when you were completing the FAFSA, then it's going to limit the amount of documents that we would need from you if you did get chosen for verification. Now, sometimes you may get a couple of items that show up, you provide those items to us, and then based on those items, it opens other cans of worms. So then we end up needing additional documents. If that happens to you, please don't get mad at us. Some students are like, well, why didn't you ask me for everything in the first place? We honestly just didn't know until you provided those first documents. As I say, it opens other cans of worms, and then sometimes we need additional documents. So again, that's why it's super important. Start working on this early, do the FAFSA early. As soon as you see the checklist items, submit them, whether it's to us or USF or wherever it is you may be going. And then, you're not dealing with this at the last minute, a few weeks before classes start, and then running into due date problems and due date extension problems. So that's why I always recommend to students, do this as early as possible. I'm sure all of you guys do. That's what I tend to find. Students that come on these presentations always do things early. So students I never talk to that do things the last minute. But any questions as far as verification goes? No. Yep. I feel a question coming. It's okay. Just because I move on, don't feel shy to ask a question. Nope. Okay. So the next part I'm going to talk about are the different types of financial aid. As I mentioned, basically there are 4 types: grants, scholarships, federal work study, and federal student loans. Without a doubt, the parts that I concentrate the most on encouraging students to get are the grants, scholarships, and federal work study. I really discourage you from getting loans as much as possible, but I will talk briefly about federal student loans as well, because I know sometimes they are important. The bottom line, when it comes to grants, the beautiful thing is you only have to do one application. By completing the FAFSA application, it's going to determine your eligibility for federal grants, state grants, and institutional grants. So it makes your life very simple. Now, one of the biggest problems that arises is sometimes people make mistakes on the FAFSA. So say you did the 1920 FAFSA or the 2021 FAFSA, and you were full Pell eligible. You got all sorts of grants, more than covered the cost of your education. Then you do the 21-22 FAFSA, and you suddenly discover you don't get grants anymore. So the first thing I ask students is, well, did you get a pay raise? Was your income significantly different? Was your parents' income significantly different from 2018 to 2019? So that's kind of the first thing that we look at. But if students are like, no, everything's pretty much the same, then what we can do, and we'll look at the FAFSAs, we'll compare them, is we'll make sure there were no mistakes made. Common mistakes are decimal points. Sometimes a student maybe made $10,000 in 2019, but they made $100,000. So there are, and it's not uncommon to see that. So then if a student made a simple mistake on the FAFSA, we just say, go back in, make a correction. But the most common mistake that we see on the FAFSA is regarding the asset questions. So there are 3 questions on the FAFSA that ask about your assets. Those 3 questions are, what do you have in checking and savings accounts? That one is typically not misanswered. But then the next 2, what did you have by way of investments? And what is the net worth of your business? For most people, these 2 questions, the answer should be 0. Investments do not include your primary residence, do not include your car, do not include the cost of your computer, your PlayStation, your phone. Do not include retirement accounts. So if you've started putting money into a 401k or a 403b or an IRA, those things do not get included on the FAFSA. The only thing you include under investments on the FAFSA is if you have a portfolio of stocks and bonds, or if you have additional rental properties or vacation properties. And for most people, it's not the case. So the first thing I'll ask a student when I look at their FAFSA, if they have a number in that investment box, I ask them what that is. So don't make that mistake on the FAFSA. The third question of assets is asking if you have a business and what is the net worth of your business. Well, a lot of people have side hustles, so they start thinking, well, it's a business, and it is a business. And they start trying to figure out, well, what is my net worth of my business? And they come up with some type of number that they put on the FAFSA. However, as far as the net worth of the business, that's only if you have a business that you employ more than 100 people. If your business is a small business that doesn't employ 100 people, then anything in that box. So very common mistakes that I see on the FAFSA. Sometimes people are proud of their business, and I understand people being proud. If you've started a small business or you have some sort of side hustle, you want to stand up and be proud and go, look, it's worth this much money. But on the FAFSA, unless you employ 100 people, you do not need to be putting it on there. And by putting it on there, all you'll be doing is negatively impacting your likelihood of grants. I'm not telling you to lie on the FAFSA, I'm just telling you how to answer that question. So those are some of the common mistakes. And as I mentioned already, as far as doing a professional judgment, sometimes a student's income or parent's income would have changed from what it was on the base year, whether that be 2018 income, if we're talking the 2021 FAFSA, which is our current FAFSA, or we're talking 2019 income information, which is what is going to go on the 21-22 FAFSA, which is the FAFSA that just came out on October the 1st, but doesn't come into effect until fall of next year. So as I said, if you had a change of income in 2020, then definitely reach out to the financial aid department and we can discuss a change of circumstance. I mean, even right now, the FAFSA that we're using to determine your eligibility, the 2021 FAFSA, it looked at your 2018 income information. We can do a change of circumstance on that. You know, if you're not getting grants right now and your income has gone down, reach out to us. We can look at doing a change in circumstance right now and potentially getting you more grants right now in the spring and in the summer. You don't have to wait for that 21-22 FAFSA change in circumstance. The only other change in circumstance I'll just talk to you about briefly is when you do the FAFSA, it does ask you 13 questions that determine whether you are considered dependent or independent. Now, if you're considered dependent, you have to put parents' information on the FAFSA. If you're considered independent, you do not. Those 13 questions are basically, are you 24? Are you married? Do you have children that you provide 50% support for? Do you provide 50% support for anybody else that's not a child of yours? Are both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care after the age of 13? Are you an emancipated minor? Are you homeless? Are you working on a master's degree? Are you in the military, or were you in the military? So for a lot of people, they can't answer yes to those questions, and therefore they are considered a dependent student. But there is another professional judgment that we can sometimes do with students where, even though they're not able to answer yes to any of those questions, they may not have a safe relationship with their parents. You know, whether it's an abusive situation with their parents, or whether it's an abandonment, whether their parents are non-compos mentis. There's a few different reasons why, even though you can't answer yes to one of those questions, you can sometimes reach out to us in the financial aid department to see about doing what's called a dependency override, so that you can still do the FAFSA without having to have parental information. Now, one of the grounds for doing a dependency override is not that just because you live on your own and you pay your own bills. That unfortunately is not grounds for doing a dependency override. It does have to be something a little bit more extreme. You know, we have a lot of students that are maybe 22 years old, they're not married, live on their own, been living on their own for a long time. Possibly parents live in a different state or even a different country. Parents really have nothing to do with financially supporting them, but that unfortunately is not grounds. It does have to be a abuse situation, abandonment. And when I say abandonment, is you just have no idea where your parents even are. Incarcerated parents, drug addicted parents, parents who are do not mentally have all of their faculties. That type of situation where we can then go, okay, clearly we're not going to use your parents on the FAFSA. Trying to have them fill out the FAFSA is putting you in some sort of danger. Let's not do that. Let's move forward with doing a dependency override with you. I've now just thrown a lot of information at you regarding professional judgments and grants. Any questions on that type of thing? Nope, no problem. I'll move on. If you think of any questions later, you're more than welcome to ask. So the next thing I really want to talk about are scholarships. And scholarships are something that a lot of students end up leaving on the table. Because a lot of students, they fill out the FAFSA, they get grants, they get more than enough grants to cover the cost of their tuition, books, and fees. A month into the term, they get a nice big fat refund check. So they go, well, I'm in a good state, I don't need any additional money. But just because your education is already covered and you're already getting a refund doesn't mean you can't apply for scholarships. And a lot of students end up leaving scholarships on the table. To give you an example, to come to SPC, in-state tuition, full-time, Total cost of tuition, books, and fees is about $2,000 a semester. Grants alone, if a student gets maximum Pell Grant, state grant, and a couple of other grants, maybe they got $4,000 in grants for the semester. So already that student's like, well, that $4,000 clearly covered my tuition, books, and fees. And a month into the term, I got a $2,000 scholarship, so I'm all good. But that same student potentially could have got a total of about $10,000 in grants and scholarships for the semester. So instead of just getting a $2,000 refund check, you could have been getting like an $8,000 refund check. Now, am I encouraging you to get these larger refund checks just so you can go out and buy the latest Apple devices? And don't think it's any surprise that Apple releases all their new devices at the same time as every university and college around America is getting those refund checks. Apple is a smart company. But no, that is not the reason I'm encouraging you to get these large refund checks. The reason I want you to get these larger refund checks is whilst you're attending SPC, SPC is very reasonably priced. So there is a lot of money potentially left on the table. And chances are for most of you on this call, you're going to be going on to get a bachelor's and then you're ultimately going on to get a master's or doctorate degree. Now, to the bachelor's level, great. Bachelor's not too expensive, lots of grants, lots of scholarships available. So you can finish a bachelor's degree and realistically you can have a bachelor's with no student loan debt. However, when you go on for your master's degree, there's very few grants and scholarships available. So most master's degrees are covered through either loans or if you're fortunate enough that your company will do some sort of tuition reimbursement. But that's why I encourage students, whilst you can get all this additional money, save it, hold on to it, so that when you ultimately do go on to whether it's a more expensive 4-year university or whether you stay with us to get your bachelor's, which is very smart, and then continue on to a bigger university to get your master's, then you've got this extra money saved, so you can then utilize that to pay for your master's. So at the end of the day, you're not starting your life, starting your career with this huge student debt burden, which is what we don't want to do to you. We want to change your life for the better. We don't want to change it for the worst. Average student leaving college in America right now with just a bachelor's degree has a student loan debt of $30,000. And that's the average. You guys, I'm assuming, have mathematical knowledge and understand the difference between averages and medians. There's over 100,000 students in America that have there's over 1 million students in America that have over $100,000 in student loan debt. So there's some crazy numbers out there in student loan debt, which you can absolutely avoid by taking advantage of grants and scholarships. Now, your best bang for your buck, certainly whilst you're coming to SPC when it comes to scholarships, is the SPC Foundation Scholarship. A lot of people don't apply. Why do I say it's the best bang for your buck? It's one application, applies for between 300 to 500 different scholarships. And only SPC students can apply. So it limits the competition that's out there against you. Now, if you didn't apply for the spring already, you are too late to apply for the spring, but the summer foundation window will be opening in February, I believe. It's usually open for about a month. So make sure you apply early for those SPC Foundation scholarships. If you're going to be going to a different college, USF, and check out their website, they will have equivalent foundation scholarships with a similar application process. The SBC Foundation scholarship application is so easy. It does ask you a couple of essay questions. When I say essay questions, they're a paragraph. And then you have to have a letter of recommendation. Even the letter of recommendation is set up to be really simple for you. You simply put in an email address of somebody you want to be your letter of recommendation. That person you request receives an email. That person simply needs to be answering some questions on a scale of 1 through 10, and then they can do a little paragraph if they want to. They don't need to even do the paragraph. They can simply answer, it's about 10 questions where they're grading you on a scale of 1 through 10. So whoever you pick for your letter of recommendation, make sure it's somebody who's going to give you 10s across the board. But that's the foundation scholarship. Definitely apply. In addition to the foundation scholarship, on our website, we have a whole bunch of institutional scholarships, and we have a whole list of private donor scholarships with varying deadlines that we have already vetted. Every scholarship I've mentioned so far are all good, valid scholarships, whether we're talking foundation, institutional, or private donor. Now, personally, I think that's going to be more than enough scholarships for you to apply for. But if you feel that you have got to the bottom of that well and you still want to apply for more, then we do also have some generic scholarship search engines on our website, things like fastweb.com, scholarships.com. I'm not a huge fan of those myself. They're okay as a last resort, but you just got to be careful on those websites. There's a lot of scams out there. So the first warning I'd suggest to you, if you do decide to use those more generic search engines, one, create a separate email account, because you will end up with a whole bunch of spam email. Two, never give your social security number, never give your credit card number, never pay for a scholarship. I just got a call before I jumped on this presentation from Accessibility. It's asking me about a scholarship that a student was about to apply for. The scholarship basically said, yes, send us a $50 processing fee. You're eligible for a $1,000 scholarship. I told them, do not apply. You never pay for a scholarship. So there's a lot of scholarships out there. Apply for as many as you can. Bottom line, there are two types of scholarships. There are need-based scholarships and merit-based. Merit-based ones will be based on your GPA. Need-based will require you to have completed the FAFSA. So that's why I'm always going to recommend that you do submit the FAFSA, even if you know you're not eligible for anything from the FAFSA. It can sometimes open up additional eligibility on scholarships. Any questions? Hopefully all of you have applied for scholarships in the past. If you haven't, definitely start applying now. Do not leave that free money on the table. Next type of financial aid I highly recommend is the Federal Work-Study Program. The reason I'm a big fan of the Federal Work-Study Program is, especially in the financial aid department, we really train our students in the Federal Work-Study Program useful skills. They don't just work in the financial aid department just doing scanning and copying for us. Often we'll have them doing presentations, we have them assist with counseling, we have them prepare for events. And it's the same in most departments in the Federal Work-Study Program. You're getting very marketable skills. So at the end of your degree, at the end of your education, yes, you have that qualification, which is the all-important, I have my associate's degree, I have my bachelor's degree, whatever qualification it is you're working on, but you also have something else to put on your resume that differentiates you from the other students that are graduating with that degree. You have those marketable skills that you've learned in the Federal Work-Study Program. So I'm a big fan of it. Definitely, if you're not already working in it, apply. You get a paycheck. You can work 29 hours a week. It pays $9.66 an hour. Maybe coming up and minimal wage possibly being increased over the next few years. We'll actually be able to. We'll be forced into putting up our wages to work studies as well. I will say it. Vote. Please vote. And if you are looking at voting, I would like to say who I'd like you to vote for, but I won't. But do please vote for the minimum wage increase. They are talking about increasing minimum wage over the next 5 years up to $15 an hour. I know there's a long debate that can be had about it that I'd love to debate with you, but it is a positive thing in the grand scheme of things for the economy. But that's me off my soapbox. I'll get off that right now. Any questions about federal work study? Nope. All right.
I have a quick question, William.
Yes, yes.
What type of jobs are there for federal work study?
Fantastic question. Certainly we have jobs in the financial aid department. There are jobs in academic advising. There are jobs in career services, in the labs, in the library, doing tutoring. So pretty much for any type of fields that a student is looking going into, there are jobs available in the federal work study program that could give them additional skills. The best thing I recommend a student to do is just do the generic student federal work study application. Just by doing that application, then they'll then receive a link to all the jobs that are available. And then they can look through all those jobs to see if there's something that interests them. Yeah, the federal work study application process is a little different than the regular working at SBC. And it's a mistake a lot of students make is they simply go on our website, they go to the link where it says work for SBC, but those jobs are all jobs that typically require already some sort of a minimum bachelor's degree because those are SBC employee jobs. But the federal work study program obviously doesn't require that, and that was back on the link that I had on the prior slide. Oh, I didn't have a link on there. Okay, so it's on the SP College website. You would, let me find out what that is. I don't know if my screen is being 100% shared now or it's just a PowerPoint. Tell me if you can see. Can you see just the internet right now? Or do you see still the PowerPoint slide?
We still see the PowerPoint.
Let me see if I can change my sharing. So I can show you exactly where to find this. Let me go back to Teams.
It's basic, kind of in the same spot, and I think that's why some people get confused. Is because they're really close to each other. I work for the Federal Work Study in the Clearwater Library, and I remember them like they're just like one tab is right under the other for each other. So
Right. And that's why I'm trying to avoid people making that mistake. So that's what I'm going to show you. If I can now unshare this screen.
thank you. Now you want the card back? You can have the card back.
Check. Why? All right, now let me go here. All right, so now you see our website, I'm assuming, the SP College website?
Yes.
Excellent. So where you would go is under current student. So that if you were going just simply to work for SPC, you would simply scroll to the bottom of the SPC website, and that's where it says work for SPC. But the student employment part is clicking on current student. Once that comes up, over on the left, you click on where it says financial aid. And when this eventually comes up, you click on types of financial aid. And then we can scroll down the page, and it talks about the different types. So it talks about grants, talks about scholarships. So that's where you would go for any of the scholarships I just spoke about. But then it talks about student employment. So if you click on student employment, and then this is where you would actually find, and you just keep scrolling down the page, where the actual application is for the student employment application is right here. So it's in a slightly different spot than where you would go for the regular employment. So that's where you would go if you're interested, and I definitely recommend you to be interested. Now let me unshare that. What do you guys see right now? I know it's always fun with Teams. It doesn't let you just share desktop, it seems. It wants a specific screen. So let me try to go back over here and stop sharing this and share back to my PowerPoint. PowerPoint. Any other questions on the Federal Work Study program? But thank you for the question, so I could point out exactly where to go for that. And then the last part of financial aid, which I'm not a big proponent of, and I'm always going to discourage a student from taking loans as much as I can. However, loans are certainly available, and there are basically 3 types of loans that we can offer to a student: the subsidized, unsubsidized, and then there's a parent plus loan, which is one that a parent would take out for a student. If a student feels, if you do feel that you need to take a loan, then I would definitely recommend, if possible, try to limit it to only take the subsidized portion. The subsidized loan, the government pays the interest for you whilst you're going to school, whereas the unsubsidized portion would be accruing interest all along. So that would be the first thing that I'd definitely recommend to a student, is limit what you borrow. Second thing is, in order to take a loan, some students make the mistake of they just simply go in, they accept the loan within their MySPC account, but they never complete the loan entrance counseling and master promissory note. Students will receive emails advising them they need to complete those. Otherwise, the loan will never come into the school. And then the other important factor is, I have surprisingly had students come into my office who don't graduate. They drop out of school halfway through the program. They took loans, and they are surprised that they have to pay those loans back because, as they say, they never graduated. Unfortunately, just because you don't graduate, if you take a loan, you've still got to pay that loan back. So that's why I'm always going to discourage students from taking loans as much as possible. It's very easy to take loans, and those additional refunds can seem great at the time, but at the end of the day, it takes a long time to pay those loans back. And if you're not careful, this is how old you will be by the time you are finally paying off your federal student loans, if you end up being one of the million people, as I said, that have over $100,000 in student loan debt. So any questions on student loans? I know I said I'd cut through it pretty quickly, because as I say, I really encourage you, take advantage of grants, scholarships, and federal work study. But the last thing I do want to talk about briefly is, when you all started college, you all started off with a 4.0 GPA, and it was yours to lose. Hopefully most of you still are up there with those high GPAs. But the bottom line, everyone starts off being eligible for financial aid, And in order to keep receiving financial aid, you just need to maintain satisfactory academic progress. SAP is basically broken down into three components: GPA, completion ratio, and maximum time frame. So GPA, you just need to keep your GPA above a 2.0. Completion ratio, you need to keep it above 67%. Completion ratio is just of the classes you attempted. You need to be successful in 67% of them. The one that is a little bit confusing is maximum time frame. So what maximum time frame is basically you have to be on track to successfully complete the degree you're enrolled in within 150% of the published length of that degree. Now I'm going to translate that into English. So if you are in an associate's degree is 60 credits long. So you need to successfully be on track to successfully complete those 60 credits before you have attempted a total of 90 credits. You don't have to have attempted 90 credits. The minute the computer goes, mathematically, this student will not graduate with their 60 credits before they've attempted 90 credits. That's when a student gets flagged for maximum time frame. Now, as long as you meet those criteria, you will merrily go on receiving financial aid. If you drop below on any one of those criteria, you go on to SAT warning. Now, when you're on SAT warning, you're still eligible for financial aid for that one semester. By the end of that warning semester, you need to have your GPA or completion ratio pulled back up. If you go on warning for maximum time frame, nothing you can do to turn it around because obviously you're just going to be taking more credits. But mathematically, hopefully you can turn the GPA or completion ratio around within that warning term. If you do, you go back to meet SAP and you merrily go on receiving financial aid. If you don't get it turned around in that semester, then you go to not meet SAP. When you're not meets, you're no longer eligible for financial aid until one of two things happen. Either one, you do a SAP appeal that is approved, or two, you pay out of pocket until such time as you do get that GPA and or completion ratio back above the threshold. SAP appeals, in a nutshell, you just have to explain why you're in this situation. The appeal committee are basically looking at four things when they're looking at a SAP appeal. One, did the student have extenuating circumstances? Two, did the student provide documentation to prove it? Three, has something now changed? And four, did the student provide documentation to prove it? So when you're doing a SAP appeal, often I'll tell a student, okay, you had a medical issue, explain the medical issue, provide the documentation to prove you had a medical issue, provide documentation to prove that you're now fine to come back to school, have a doctor's clearance note. Of course, not everyone is medical. There's many different reasons why somebody could do a SAP appeal, but that is SAP very quickly. Any questions about SAP? No. Any questions about anything that we've discussed? Or any questions about something that you wish I had discussed that I didn't discuss? Nope. In that case, we can move right on to the fun and games part of playing Kahoot then. So let me unshare again, one more time, this screen, and then I'll bring up the Kahoot screen. Let me close this one down. And I think I already have Kahoot open somewhere. Excellent. Share and unshare. Kahoot, you are there. All right. Do you all see the Kahoot page now? Excellent. So what this is going to do is going to come up with a pin. So if you, let me turn that down. That's very annoying. So if you do hopefully have a mobile phone or some sort of a separate mobile device that you can simply go to kahoot.com on, or I say it's kahoot.it. Or you can get the Kahoot app and then you simply put that code in. And Melanie, I see you're already on. You are speedy. And Jasmine, I see you are on.
Excellent. I know how this works.
You know how this works? Okay, good. We have Nathan now. So I guess I don't need to say, you guys can see that screen. So you can see as everyone joins. I don't know how many people are likely to be joining. Do we have anybody else that's trying to get onto the Kahoot game right now?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, no problem. Not rushing you. Not rushing you. I just didn't want to start if there were still people. It's the fun thing about doing these remote presentations. I don't know whether I'm presenting to 5 people or 100 people. I'm sure it tells me somewhere.
It's 12.
I'm in.
Excellent, excellent. Is there anybody else trying to get in that is not in yet before I start playing? Don't want anyone to miss out on this fun and games. Alrighty, I am going to assume that everybody is in and somebody's not struggling to find their mute button to tell me that they can't get in. So we will jump right on in with the first question. Alrighty, so we got 6 of you that got it right. Excellent. 1 person went with FASFA.org. Yes, please don't make that mistake. Please make sure you go to the government website. Don't go to any other website to do this FASFA. FASFA.gov is the only one to go to. Alrighty, so let's see who answered that quickest. Alrighty, we have a leader. Is it, I don't want to mispronounce it, is it Dinika or Dinika? I know we've spoken, but I don't know how to pronounce your name.
It's okay. It's Danica.
Danica, sorry, that made sense as well. My bad. Alrighty, and on to the next question. Alrighty, excellent. You go. I thought we were all listening. Somebody said October the 15th. Although today is October the 15th, the first day that it was available was October the 1st. And maintaining the lead. Question 3. And this is one actually I didn't tell you. Already 7 right. Somebody obviously just hit without reading the other ones. That's the mistake that I often make when it's one of those all of the above ones. I hate all of the above answers. Who did it catch out? Don't know if it caught, who it caught out, but we have a new leader. Melanie has taken the lead, and Jasmine, I see, is on fire making her way up. I guess that means you've had a streak of really quick answers. Alrighty, going to the IRS website or IRS retrieval tool with the 2 big answers. The IRS retrieval tool is actually what it's called, and maybe that when those that answered going to the IRS website thought that's what it was. Yeah, it's not actually taking you to the IRS website. It's when you're on the FASFA website, it's just going to link directly to the IRS. It's called the IRS retrieval tool. I can see how that one could be confusing. I may have to change that question. And Melanie is now holding on to her lead. She wants those bragging rights. Something else that was on a slide, but I did not talk about it. So even though I didn't talk about it, most of you still had it right. So certainly filling out the forms in person is a great way, and we're more than happy to help you fill out the forms in person. But certainly the securest, most accurate way is using DocuSign, because even filling them out with me, I can miss things. The DocuSign form just won't let you miss things. It won't let you move on unless you do fill out every box that needs filling out. So yeah, definitely utilize the DocuSign. Oh, Melanie is definitely extending her lead. Although Sandy is making a rush at it. She's had a bunch of high scoring answers recently. Excellent. Everybody knows what SAP stands for. Good, good, good. And what has that done? Anything to the scoreboard? I'm not sure whether Shah moved any closer to Melanie, but Melanie has a pretty strong lead there. She may need to make a mistake for somebody to catch her in these last questions. Let's see, how many of you answered that so quickly that you didn't notice that it was another one of these, all of the aboves? None of you made the mistake again. Excellent. All of the above, 100% correct. Yes. And Melanie is holding on to that lead. Those bragging rights she can hold on to for the next year. Book line of credit. Now, that's not something that I spoke about. So this is something I did want to discuss with you guys, though. So this is something I know confuses a lot of students. Excellent. So this one was one I really did throw in specifically as an equalizer question. Book line of credit, I think, confuses a lot of students. Book line of credit, I think sometimes students think that it's something that if they don't use it, they lose it, or they think it's just magical money coming out of thin air. But there definitely seems to be a lot of confusion that goes on around book line of credit. All it really is each semester you sign up for classes and you get a certain amount of financial aid. Let's say, for instance, your classes cost $1,000 and you have $2,000 of financial aid. So if that were your scenario, then the maximum amount of financial aid that we would offer you to spend in the bookstore is $800. So we simply tell the bookstore, okay, this student has enough money to spend as much as $800. So the book line of credit is usually open about 4 weeks before classes start and then 2 weeks after they start. So say you go to the bookstore and you use the full $800. So in this example, your tuition cost $1,000. You spent $800 in the bookstore, so your total cost for the semester was $1,800, and your total financial aid was $2,000. So when that financial aid comes in, it's going to pay for your tuition, the $1,000 of tuition. It's going to pay for the $800 book line of credit, and therefore your refund would only be about $200. So that's why I think sometimes people think, okay, I got $800 book line of credit, I need to spend it all. So they go and buy headphones and flash drives and sweatshirts. But with that same scenario, if you only bought the books that you needed, so you only spent $300 of the book line of credit, at the end of the book line of credit period, the bookstore will tell us you spent $300, your tuition cost $1,000, you only spent $1,300, so now your financial aid's $2,000, so now the refund you would get would be $700. It's basically how the book line of credit works. And I honestly believe there's a lot of confusion on how it works. So that's why I kind of wanted to throw it in as an equalizer question so I could just talk to you all a little bit about it. But let us see what that did to the scores on the doors. Oh, Melanie still, I believe, got it right. Melanie was the one that got it right. So she holds on to the lead. And question number 9. Excellent, and you all got that right. The only reason I put in parentheses usually is grants and scholarships can sometimes have to be repaid if you end up dropping classes before they are completed. So that's why I do warn students that primarily grants, scholarships, and federal work study is free money, does not need to be repaid. However, if you do drop classes, it can result in funds needing to be repaid. So that's why I always recommend if you are considering withdrawing from a class, definitely reach out to me so we can discuss it. So it's not going to have done a lot of change. Yeah, in fact, Melanie just keeps pulling away with her lead here. And I think we have one more question. What is the SPC school code when you're filling out the FAFSA? I maybe gave too much of a clue when we were going over that. But let's see how many of you actually did write it down, because otherwise you may not know. All right. So yeah, the SPC school code, if you didn't write it down before, you may want to now, 001528. Yes, I did try to catch you out by using numbers that were very close. And let us take a look. I suspect we know who the winner is, but we can certainly take a look. And Sandy is in 3rd place. Jasmine, 2nd place. And as we suspected, drum roll please, Melanie is the winner. And as I said, unfortunately I have no prize for you, but you do get bragging rights over the next year. Thank you so much for all of your time this afternoon. Does anyone have any other questions now that maybe came about over whilst we were talking about the Kahoot? No? Am I on mute? No.
Well, if there are no more questions, I do have some comments. So first of all, thank you so much, Will, for doing this for us. We really appreciate it. You gave a lot of informative information, and I look forward to working with you again in the future. For all of the students, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and sit in on this PATHe workshop. For those of you who do not know, PATHe is a collaborative effort between USF St. Petersburg campus and SPC. So I think a lot of you are FUSE students, so very similar to FUSE. PATHe allows students to start at SPC and then transfer specifically into the USF St. Petersburg campus. So if you are interested in learning more information about that, because you can be a PATHe and a FUSE student, definitely let us know. And then I have 2 links that I'm going to post into the chat for you all. So the first link is going to be our survey for today's workshop. So it lets us know how you felt, what you learned, how it could be done differently, if it needs to be done differently, if it was perfect the way that it is. And we can definitely give that feedback back to Will. It always helps us to do a great job of making sure that you get the information that you need. And then the second thing I'm going to share in the chat with you all is next week is the National Transfer Student Week. So USF, all 3 campuses are hosting virtual events from Monday through Friday. It's packed full of activities and events where you can interact with the different campuses, but also different offices and different transfer students at USF. So I would highly recommend that you take part in these activities. If you see anything that interests you, the links are clickable. So, or I'm sorry, the Teams word is clickable. So whenever you click on it, it will take you to that activity for that day. And I am putting those things in here now. Oh wait, it didn't post. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, I think that is all for today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week. I know Friday is tomorrow, yay. So enjoy your Friday as well as your weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.